most people want to learn how to get better, higher quality clients. In order to do that, you have to be clear about a couple different things. You have to know what you do, who you do it for, and why it matters. Low variability in process equals low variability in outcome. If your process is different every single time, there's a strong chance it's going to be different every single time. If you have consistent outcome, you look less risky, that means you're safe. You want to be safe from the eyes of the buyer. The problem with most creative people, we spend so much time thinking about what we do that we have so little time to understand what the clients hate. Sometimes we think too much about what they want and not the things they want to avoid. And we need to address that. I think we just need to do some business 101 for 2024 moving to 2025, the way I see it. I want to caveat something. A friend of mine said something like, all strategies are autobiographical. All strategies are autobiographical. I'm only going to tell you to do things that I've done that I like and think work. But that means you have to be aware of bias and also the certain factors that have contributed to the decisions I made, and make sure you map it to what you do, okay? So oftentimes, if I say something and it doesn't quite map with what you're doing, don't fight the whole idea, just understand the idea, and then later on think to yourself, how might I use those ideas and tailor it for me? Does that make sense? We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing. Some parts we keep, some parts we can toss out. Okay, now I'm going to come at this from the point of view of things that we've done as Blind, my service design company, and then as the Futur as a content education platform, okay? And most people want to learn how to get better, higher quality clients. In order to do that, you have to be clear about a couple different things. You have to know what you do, who you do it for, and why it matters. So there's a question about niching down. And I don't want to make a long argument because we could spend a whole hour talking about this whole niching thing. I don't want to do that. I think you're going to have to just make an adult choice here, which is, how long do you want to suffer for? How long do you want to work in relative anonymity and to compete at the bottom level and get paid almost nothing for what you do? That will determine if you should niche or not. In very few instances will it work in your favor to be a generalist. I can only think of a few. Usually executives, like CEOs, are better off as generalists. Managers are better off as generalists. Sometimes salespeople are better as being a generalist, but everybody who's kind of has their hand in the work, it's almost always better that you do something repeatedly. So what you do and what you don't realize is some people are, and I'm just going to make this up because I know it sounds super silly, but actually real people have told me these things. I'm a photographer, I'm an illustrator, I'm a graphic designer, I build websites, and I do development work. People really say this to me. And they'll even throw in, I'm an artist as well, and I sing and dance. It's like, there's so many slashes to what they do. Let me tell you what the problem is. When you tell somebody this is what you do, you're doing like a cognitive overload to the other person's brain. You're going to ask them, I'm really important, please stop thinking about what you're doing in your life and your own problems, and use all of your brain power to remember what it is I do, and find the connective tissue between all these things. What will ultimately happen is you'll short-circuit their brain, they won't remember anything, or they'll remember the wrong thing. When you're a photographer and somebody's looking for help, they don't want mediocre, they don't want middle of the road, they'd like to hire the best that they could afford. That makes sense, right? You don't want to take your family out to eat an Italian dinner that's kind of at the bottom of the barrel in the middle of the road. You want to buy the best meal that you can afford. There's an affordance issue right there, right? So cool, now you compete with all the photographers who are at the top of their game. And then you compete with all the illustrators and all the graphic designers. So what you've inadvertently done is you've invited more competition, not less competition. And the goal of positioning and marketing is to reduce or eliminate competition. So your goal, if we can agree, do we agree? We want to reduce or eliminate competition. Not possible to eliminate all competition, but you want to get it down pretty small. David Baker has this thing that he writes about in the Business of Expertise. He has a magic number, and the magic number is kind of semi-arbitrary based on his experience. If you have, say, one competitor, he's like, that's too few, because the market is not big enough to support you. Because basically, the market can support you and one other person. That's it. But he says if you have 10,000 competitors, that's way too narrow. That means you're just too broad, too generic. He has a number, I think, somewhere between 10 to like 50. It's not a giant number. It's somewhere around there. If you have 10 to 50 competitors, you're narrow enough. So how many people here are niched? Raise your hand. Okay, only a few. And now here's the thing, you can lower your hand. He says, if you think you've niched enough, he's like, you haven't. Everybody thinks they've niched, and then when I ask them what they do or who they serve, it's just too broad. So there's a shorthand for this that I read in, and I think it's Michael Porter's book, Book Yourself Solid. Is it Michael Porter? Has anybody read that book? It is. Thank you. He says, your niche is really simple, right? He says, it's your market, like who you serve, plus like what you're passionate about. So we don't have to make this so complicated. The market you serve plus what you're passionate about. So I help certain types of entrepreneurs, and what I'm passionate about is people who want to start gyms for women trying to recover from pregnancy. That's what I'm passionate about. So that would be your niche. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. So if you just identify a market and it's too broad, you're not anywhere close. You need to narrow the market and you need to add your passion. And this makes perfect logical sense to me again, because why would you want to build a career doing something you're not passionate about? It wouldn't make sense to me to do that, okay? So your market plus your passion would equal your niche. Here's another line I want to burn into your brain. Low variability in process equals low variability in outcome. If your process is different every single time, there's a strong chance it's going to be different every single time. We understand that, right? Okay. This is a quote I learned, I think, from Blair Enns. Low variability in process means the less there's variation in the process, the more predictable the outcome is. Predictable outcomes are valuable because it communicates low risk. When you buy a car that's mass-produced, say Mercedes-Benz or BMW, you kind of expect it to work a very specific way because they keep manufacturing the car the same way. If they open a new plant, they hire a new plant manager, there's a new assembly process, the cars might break down more often. So what you do is if you have a defined process, you should publish said process in as many places as possible. You should talk about that. There's a married couple, maybe not after this conversation, but there's a married couple in the back. They're talking about restoring furniture. They kind of know what they're doing. They've been doing it for a long time because the white hair, I assume, just doing it a long time, right? Yeah, right? That means they can teach other people how to do this and have great confidence that relative new people can get into it and be able to have similar outcomes. We know they've done this many times because they can teach it and their students are able to achieve similar results. This is fantastic because if you have consistent outcome, you look less risky, that means you're safe. You want to be safe from the eyes of the buyer. Okay? You are going to, if you continue to publish what you do, your process, you'll be a sought-after keynote speaker because a lot of people in the industry are going to want to learn how you keep getting these great, consistent results. If you look at some of the most successful from an album sales point of view, artists in the world, they're able to make hit song after hit song. You may not love them, but they just know how to make money. It's shocking now. Taylor Swift, maybe not the best artist in the world, is a billionaire. She can move all kinds of people to come to a venue somewhere and do this amazing thing because she knows how to make a hit after hit. And she knows how to produce a show that's very consistent. So people will go crazy to buy tickets and be in a concert for 3 hours. The Beatles know how to consistently put out hits. And then there's the one-hit wonders. Like the Verve, one great song, Bittersweet Symphony, and that was kind of it. Do you want to be the one-hit wonder or do you want to be the Beatles? That's the question for you to ponder. So if you can have a consistent process and you can publish this and share it, your notoriety, your authority will grow. We're moving forward into the 21st century and something really weird has happened. And we're talking about this at a summit amongst really influential people. They asked this question: has your social media following or your social media become the new resume? It was a really interesting question. And the people that were in that room were creators in the creative industry. So they kind of all nodded yes, and it got me to think, When was the last time you looked at someone's resume and believed it? Right? Everybody fudges on their resume. I see people who will write Stanford, but they went to school for 1 semester and dropped out. I've seen all kinds of things. People fluffing up all kinds of creative ways to use a resume. But you know what? I'm not saying it's not something you can fake, but it's harder to fake a highly engaged social media account with pieces of thought leadership where you're speaking and sharing what it is that you know in the voice that's yours. That's the critical part. Because what people do is they regurgitate other people's content. Those people are not building thought leadership. They're not collecting and building social proof. And you can tell. Because it sounds generic. They never put their voice or their signature on it. You can just tell. The problem with most creative people, we spend so much time thinking about what we do that we have so little time to understand what the clients hate. Most corporate people are worried about this shoot, that they're not going to look good on camera. If we know the client's pain point inside this dream outcome, because there's both things that they want and things they want to avoid. Sometimes we think too much about what they want and not the things they want to avoid. And we need to address that. So there's going to be a gift that's been given to you from Janet here that we're going to work on together, and you'll see, okay? I recently went on a week-long tour of Ireland with some of my professional friends. And the event organizer, his name is Owen, he sent me a book that describes the things we're going to see. So he's created the journey before the journey. Now, if you know your clients hate being on camera and they feel really awkward and stupid, you could produce a video and share with every single client, because now you have a process. Thank you for bringing us on. Here's a video that you can watch that's going to take you through how this is going to work, how you can be your most present, charming self on camera. And just give some examples. Something that would take you a little bit of time to do that you can repurpose forever. That would be a quick win. You're giving me value. You're also communicating to me, this ain't my first rodeo. I've done this many, many times before. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect.
So now we're trying to think about the customer journey and giving them as many wins as possible that's not a burden to them. Make it easy to consume so it feels like it's a gift. Make sense? Yeah. A little video, 5 pointers for your upcoming video shoot. We're super excited to talk to you. Here are the things that you can do in practice. This is what to expect. Keep that under 5 minutes. They're going to be grateful. So that's a quick win. So what I want you to do is train your mind. Whenever you go to buy something, whenever you experience something, what are they doing to give you a quick win? Sometimes you go into a fancy restaurant, you sit down, you're still looking at the menu, and they say, oh, a gift from the chef. That's a quick win. You see, it's being done all around you from very smart business people. People who understand how to create a delightful customer experience. I have a very simple formula I'm going to share with you before I get out of here. Because you're like, well, Chris, we're going to go poor because you're not allowing us to advertise ever. That's a reasonable conclusion to what I'm saying, okay? So we're going to solve this problem right now. There's a very basic ratio that you need to follow. In America, when there's an emergency, we dial 911. Somebody's dying, somebody's hurt, somebody's breaking into your apartment, you call 911, you need help. And right now, I'm just going to guess, your social media content needs a lot of help. No one cares, no one's reading it, there's no engagement, it's dead. So you need to resuscitate, we're going to call 911. So what you want to do is 9 pieces of pure value-based content. All value. Do not ask for anything, don't be sneaky about some offer or anything like that. Just give me some insights. Okay? Then you're going to make 1 personal post, not about your cat or your dog, but something unusual about you that makes you a little bit different than everybody else. You like to hike? You like to go fishing? Write about that. The reason why you want to do this is a lot of people, myself included, hide behind all value educational content, and then people are like, who the hell are you? You're putting out faceless tips. They're helpful, but I don't know who you are. And I need to know who you are to connect with you on an emotional level. This is very important. And then 1 hardcore ad. Buy my stuff. You won't need to apologize for it. The reason why we don't do hardcore ads like hire me or whatever it is you want to say is because we haven't earned the right to ask for it. That's all it is. So the ratio here is pretty good. So if you give so much value, eventually they're going to say, what do you make? I need your help. And they'll ask for the call, or they'll slip into your DMs, or they'll check out your profile on LinkedIn. That's the time to follow up with them.